Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Made Me Do It podcast. My name is Dario. I run Bluebird Coffee Roastery in South Africa, and I have the privilege of hosting this podcast, speaking to coffee professionals, producers, roasters, coffee adjacent people as well around the world. And I'm really excited to share this conversation with Louis from Dak Coffee Roasters in Amsterdam with you. It was a wonderful conversation with so many insights, and if you have any interest in the future of coffee, specifically specialty coffee, and how to scale an amazing roastery, I think there are nuggets in this conversation you'll really enjoy and benefit from. I know you just made yourself an espresso. What are you drinking?
We have this coffee called Milky Cake.
The very famous Milky Cake, and I actually
exactly.
I have to admit I have not had the chance to try it yet. So, how's it tasting?
Just the usual. It's very comforting as a coffee. It's super easy to work with, and just a little bit different. It's more kind of spicy and nutty, but very well done.
Awesome.
So whenever I don't know what to drink, that's what I go
reach
for
Milky Cake. Mm-hmm. And you said you pulled a shot of espresso. What are you brewing on at home?
I'm actually in the office now, so we have a micro.
Lovely.
And we just received a bunch of meticulous as well, so I'm playing around with a new meticulous.
Amazing. I haven't had a chance to play with one yet, but I saw that Marcus had one on the bar at Sweet Spot for a while. And I saw they were brewing one of our, it was a coffee from Panama that he's had in the freezer for a while. And he said it was such fun.
Yeah, it's very similar to kind of building profiles on the decent, where it gets a bit overwhelming.
Okay.
But maybe the user interface is a little bit better. But I mean, it makes fantastic espresso. It's effectively like a mechanical lever machine. So a little bit different from the decent. It's not pump based.
Okay.
So I like that quite a lot.
Yeah, there's something romantic about pulling on a lever and seeing your espresso come out the portafilter, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but for our listeners, I'm actually in the process after, I think it's about an 18-month break from the podcast. I'm in the process of accumulating a 10-episode season. And when I sat down to write out the sort of dream guest list, you were right at the top of that list. I really am so impressed with what you and Veronique have done with Dak over the last few years. And since we met in Athens, when was that? In 2023 or 2022? I can't remember now.
Yeah, it was World of Coffee Athens.
Yeah.
So that must have been 3 years ago, I think
so. And you guys have just exploded, and it's been such a joy to watch. I love seeing friends just killing it, and you guys are certainly doing that. So I'm so grateful you've taken the time. I'm really looking forward to chatting, as we always do on this podcast, about motivation and vision and the driving force behind what we do. The podcast is called Coffee Made Me Do It, and the reason I called it that is because that's what makes me do what I do. Like, I'm driven by the product, I'm driven by coffee and the excitement around coffee, and I'm always interested to learn from other people what drives them and what is the sort of motivation for them in their work. But before we get there, I think if you wouldn't mind, if we can go back a little bit in time. I know you and Veronique are from Canada. How did you guys end up in Europe?
So we met at university in Canada.
Okay.
And then I'd always wanted to live abroad and to kind of be on a bit of an adventure, if you will. So as soon as we met, I said, look, one of the things that I want to do is to go live abroad. So if you're okay with it, or if that's interesting for you, then okay, we can keep going. Otherwise, we should just stop here, because it doesn't make sense to keep dating when we know we'll have to separate at one point. But she was super excited. She also had plans to live abroad. So then I went to study in Milan initially. So I did a master's there.
Amazing.
Veronique came with me. So we stayed a year, and then after the year, we wanted to stay. So then we moved to London. We started working. So both of us were working at that time, and we lived in London for 2 years. And after the Brexit vote, we moved to Amsterdam. We were both working in Amsterdam initially as well, and then after a few years of working in more corporate jobs, then we wanted to do something a little bit different, and that's when we started.
That's amazing. And what did you do your masters in?
Financial engineering.
Okay, jeepers.
So yes, completely different.
Yeah, I mean, very few people who end up in coffee, had anything to do with coffee before they got serious about it. So that makes sense.
That's true. That's true. Like everyone that you meet basically has almost a double life. They come from a different background, and then people stumble into coffee, or it's a hobby initially. And
Exactly. Exactly. And I read on your just on the About Us page on your website that Dak literally started as a hobby on the rooftop of your building and has
yeah,
turned into this monster now. I have a very similar situation. Bluebird started as a hobby on the patio of my home, roasting coffee on a bullet, and then all of a sudden, somehow, it's not that anymore. Well, how was that process for you guys? Obviously, coming from a financial background, what was the sort of like stepping stone process from home brewer, I'm assuming, through to roasting and then starting a company?
well, we reversed into a coffee business a little bit, if you will. So
Okay,
when we wanted to quit our jobs and kind of change careers, Veronique and I both wanted to do something different at the same time. At the time, I was working in venture capital, so doing a lot of investments into fast-growing tech companies. So I wanted to have a little bit more of an operational experience. So
okay,
trying to be either in a startup or kind of growing a business. And Veronique was doing service branding. So she was working for five-star hotels before, and she wanted to do product branding. So to be able to kind of do this transition in our careers, we thought we both needed a portfolio to then start applying on different jobs or different companies. We started working on this project just as a you know just as a hobby, as a side thing, so we'd have something to show prospective employers. And so I built a whole transactional website, kind of a marketplace for coffee, and then Veronique built the branding of the product. But that was before we knew anything about coffee, before we were really into specialty coffee. So we always liked coffee, but not specialty coffee. And then after a while, we just realized, well, we have a place to sell the product. We have the branding, we have the packaging, we have kind of the brand image, the identity. The only thing that's missing is the actual beans to put in the packaging. So I
that's
booked a roasting
unreal.
class in Berlin, and then we started. Initially, it was just for friends and family, just to have something on the side while we were looking for other jobs.
That's
And
incredible. So, I mean, you used coffee as a portfolio piece to show potential clients what you could do from a operations and branding perspective. What was the draw to coffee? Was it just it could have been anything, but you just decided on coffee one day, or is there something deeper than that?
it was the one thing that we both enjoyed together. So at that time, we used to travel a lot. We'd go to cafes all the time. I used to drink a lot of bad coffee, but a lot of it. So it was just kind of the one thing that we had in common, that we were both really excited about. So it just made sense because we were doing it at the same time, to choose something um, that was somewhat related.
That is an incredible story. I'm not sure if I've ever heard that order of events. Normally, you start with this obsession with the product. That's, in all the conversations I've had with coffee professionals or roastery owners, it's normally this obsession with the product, which then turns into a business, and then you figure out how to sell the product. And you guys did exactly the opposite. As you said, you backed into it.
Yeah,
And yeah,
and
that's
it was
amazing.
good. I think it was a good,
Yeah.
because because we didn't know so much. We were a little bit naive, and we didn't know um, how knowledgeable you have to be and how deep into the product you have to be to really know all of the particularities of sourcing and harvesting coffees and growing and then processing and then the roasting. We didn't really know, and if we had known a bit more, we probably wouldn't have done it, because we would have known at that point that we didn't really have the knowledge to start a business. Um, so being ignorant, I think, helped us, because then it allowed us to get started, and then we could learn very, very fast on the go, and eventually we knew enough to then be good at what we did. But it just made it easier to start, that we didn't know what we were doing, basically.
That's amazing. I completely agree with you. I also came into coffee from a marketing perspective and didn't really have any formal experience in coffee other than brewing, again, as you guys were doing, brewing bad coffee at home and visiting cafes. And I only learned the word or the term specialty coffee after I started roasting coffee as well. So it's quite interesting. We share that, but I definitely was obsessed with the product before I got obsessed with how to present the product and sell the product. But I also did not expect to do anything more than just sell to friends and family. So
Exactly.
yeah, really, really interesting. So you said you did this roasting course in Berlin. Who was that with?
It was um, this place called, I think, Berlin School of Coffee.
Okay.
Not not so focused on specialty. Um, and looking back now, it was not a particular advanced roasting class,
Yep.
but it was good to get the basics, essentially understand how the machine works, kind of play with a play with the machine, and just to get a very basic understanding of how the process works. We also did a little bit of kind of understanding the different origins, all that. So it was just the very basic. But then properly roasting, then I learned by myself after, which
Yeah.
is very hard, as you would as you would know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you are learning from scratch and I remember plugging in, I went from the bullets and very quickly realized that roasting 800 grams at a time was not going to do it. And I bought a really cheap, because at that time it was a hobby. I bought a really cheap drum roaster from Turkey and installed it literally in my home office with a chimney straight out the roof of my home. And just hope the neighbors wouldn't recognize that there was a baked bread smell coming out of our home. But yeah, turning on the machine for the first time, I was absolutely crapping myself with that, the gas burners and the amount of heat it was generating. I was very, very scared, I won't lie. And then learning how to actually turn coffee brown consistently and well is such a difficult thing to learn on your own.
Yeah, yeah, because then you have these moments where you think you're doing exactly the same thing over and over again, but the coffee tastes different.
Yeah.
And you have other moments where you don't really know what happened and the coffee tastes fantastic. And then you're stuck. At least I was stuck in trying to make sense of what was happening, but then the results weren't really matching with what I was trying to do. So it's just this really, really difficult process to get up to speed with.
That's really interesting. I've heard varying from two different people. I've heard varying insights into your sort of like improvements and growth in roasting coffee, and both center around Scott Rao and bringing him on board as a consultant at some point. I don't know if that's accurate or not. It's very much secondhand information.
No, no, that's 100% accurate.
Okay,
It
smart.
didn't nec- it didn't happen at the start. So we managed to get, I would say, okay at roasting. We could pull out, let's say, good roast, be relatively consistent. But then every once in a while there was one particular coffee that wasn't we couldn't make we couldn't find a good roast profile for it. And then we were stuck. We didn't really know what to do at that point, because we didn't have enough understanding of what was happening um, scientifically
Yep.
to know what to change. And then we would start. changing the charge temperature, changing the airflow, changing the length of the rows, changing the end temperature. There's so many variables that you could change that then um, that was essentially an infinite amount of changes that we could make
Yeah.
to the roast profile without understanding which changes would be responsible for one improvement or which changes made it worse. So then we were flying blind essentially. We were just, okay, let's try this. If it's better, it's better. If it's not, then we'll try something else. And I was just getting a little bit frustrated because I wanted to have a system where we have a base case, we start roasting something, and then to have an idea of how to not improve it, but at least certain expectations about the changes that we would make to the roast profile and how we're changing to, or how we're trying to get to a better cup. So that's what I was trying to understand, and because I couldn't really make sense of it by myself, then it made sense to just to get Scott on board. And it was also better to do it after, I think it was after a year and a half,
Okay.
because then we weren't starting from scratch with
No,
him.
you
He
had some
wasn't
proper
showing us the
questions to ask, and
exactly.
yeah,
We had the most we could benefit from his expertise the most because we'd ask all the questions. We could be prepared when he arrived, and we could really dive into the kind of advanced roasting theory, if you will.
exactly. And at that time, you were roasting in a co-roasting space. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And when I remember meeting you in Athens, and one of the first things Marcus, because Marcus introduced us, and one of the first things he said is that you've just bought this IMF 15. And at the time, to be honest with you, I don't think, gosh, I'd heard the name, but I didn't know anything about their roasting machines. And the conversation was about the fact that you guys had already outgrown the machine before it had even arrived, just through the work you were
Yeah.
doing in the co-roasting space. So that must have been quite an interesting thing to navigate. So two questions in there is why IMF, and also what did you do when you ran out of space before the machine arrived?
Um, so we were, let's say, in a co-roasting facility. So before they had 5 kilo Besca, it was a 15 kilo Probat, and I think at one point there was a 15 kilo Coffee Tech. So all the machines were different, and what they wanted to do was to essentially upgrade and standardize the co-roasting space.
Okay.
So we didn't really choose IMF. It was a co-roasting facility that decided to essentially get rid of all the old machines they had and then upgrade to only IMF. So then they brought in a 5 kilo IMF, a 15 kilo IMF, and eventually a 60 kilo as well. So then we were essentially forced to switch and to learn this whole new process of roasting because it was completely different. And I think it was just by chance that the co-roasting selected this type of machine that ended up being really really good for us for the way that we like to roast and the way that we like to showcase the coffee. But it was purely by accident initially, and
Wow,
then
that's so interesting.
after that we just decided to buy exactly the same because we like the machine, we know how it works, and it's just much easier to stay in the same type of machine than to just start all over again with a different, not necessarily different manufacturer, but a different style of let's say air versus drum.
Exactly. And when Scott came to spend time with you guys, were you already on the IMF?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think he had heard of it, but he'd never used it before.
Okay.
And I mean, now that's what he has as well. So I think
Exactly.
he was very impressed by the workflow and the quality of the machine, and then he decided to actually purchase the same because it's just a very very good machine.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've heard so many good things, and yeah, when the time comes to upgrade, I wouldn't change from, we've got a 15 kilo machine now, and I wouldn't change from a 15 to another 15. It would definitely need to be an upgrade because we really do enjoy our current setup. But the decision is probably going to come down to Loring or IMF. And to be honest with you, the one thing that scares me off the IMF is the 30 kilo machine's footprint is just so big. I was
Yeah.
measuring it out in our space the other day, and I actually don't know how we'll make it fit. So that might actually take IMF off the table for us. Is just the physical size of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you
Definitely. But
guys
I
ended
mean,
up buying a second 15 instead of a 30.
yes.
That's so interesting.
I mean, it was, we were scrambling a bit because so we bought our first 15 kilo, which was by the time that we received it, it was too small. We were lucky enough that the space that we rented was across the street from the co-roasting space, so we
Oh,
could use
amazing.
our 15 and the co-roasting space 15 kilo, or even the 60 kilo at one point we used once per week. And then so we knew that we needed a second machine, so initially we booked and we ordered a 30 kilo, but because we were scrambling a little bit, we didn't measure everything correctly, and when the machine was ready, actually, we realized that it wouldn't fit in our space.
Because it is massive. I mean,
It's
I
massive.
think it's a 3.7 meter long footprint without the I don't know, the screw that removes the chaff.
Yeah.
So by the time you put a bin behind it and you've got a bit of space for ducting, you're in for 4.5 meters at least.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
It's a
it's a
beast.
tank. It's a beast. So I mean, we had it ordered, it was ready. I had to call IMF and say, look, the machine is not going to fit. Is there any chance that you could swap it for 15 instead? Um, I mean, they weren't necessarily happy, but they ended up being very helpful. So the guy went around, checked what machines were available, if they had any machines that were only for display that they could repurpose for us, and if they could find someone for the 30 kilo that was ready, essentially. And in the end, they made it work. So now we have two 15s,
Okay.
which ends up being better in my opinion, because I like redundancy in managing the operations of a roastery, as I'm sure you're aware as well. If a machine breaks down, it can be just a disaster. And
Yeah.
when we have two of the same, at least we're moving potentially a little bit slower if one machine breaks down, but we at least we keep moving. And that I find a better solution than having a 30 kilo for certain coffees, a 15 kilo for certain coffees, and then if one breaks down, you're essentially screwed.
Exactly. Exactly. That does make such sense because I remember we spoke about this briefly on Instagram, on WhatsApp at one point when your new machine arrived. And when it arrived, I was very confused. I was curious as to why you had done this. But space, yes, absolutely makes a huge impact. And then having that, that backup, the redundancy makes sense because best case scenario, if something breaks like a significant component, you're out for a week, I would say.
Mhm.
And unless you're sitting with a week's worth of stock, you're now scrambling. At least you have the co-roasting space across the road. We wouldn't have anything like that. There's nothing around us where we could
Yeah.
go and roast on someone else's machine. I'd have to get up to Johannesburg, and my best option would probably be to jump on a friend of mine's 70 kilo loring, which would be quite the change from our 15 kilo drum roaster.
Exactly.
So yeah, that makes complete sense. And
And and
how
and and even now we're getting close to maximum capacity on the 215s. And so if we buy another machine, it would most likely be a third 15 kilo as well.
interesting.
Um, because now, I mean, the machines run a lot. And so we have to clean the fan, we have to clean the pipes quite regularly. And what we realized works well is we order spare parts from IMF. And when it's time to clean these spare parts, instead of essentially turning off the machine, we just remove the part that needs to be cleaned. We put in a fresh one. Machine can be turned on within an hour or two. And then we have let's say, the dirty part that is in the warehouse that can be cleaned
With no
without
time pressure.
exactly no time pressure. And then when it's time to swap uh, the other fan, then the previous one was clean, so we can put in a fresh one. And so this ability to kind of reuse parts from three different machines gives us a lot of flexibility in the production, and makes it allows us to work without any downtimes, and that I like quite a lot. So I think we'll keep doing that.
That's an
Um,
amazing system. I think in my mind, I would be thinking about the logistics of how many people are roasting and the man hours required to run the 2 or 3 machines. How do you guys
mhm.
manage that? How many people within the company are actually roasting coffee?
So now the roasting team is 5 people,
Okay.
with one head roaster that is in charge of, um, let's say, machine upkeep, so making sure the machines are running as well as they can, profile development, and essentially managing the whole team. Then we have 2 senior roasters that are very, very good, essentially fully independent. And then there's one, the junior roaster, that needs a little bit of hand holding to run a production on her own, and one person in the lab that handles or manages all of the quality control, the cuppings, and the, the measurements that we take for them for all the coffee.
So I'm assuming you're measuring color as a
Y-
main sort of indicator.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That's
But
a
then it
interesting
makes it quite
operation.
easy. It makes it quite easy to have 2 of the same machines, because when we're training someone, they can jump from one machine to the other relatively easy. Whereas if it was a 30 kilo, for example, it's so different
Yeah.
that it's an extra training session there that we would need. So there's some benefits and some drawbacks. Maybe we have to hire a little bit more, and we can't do as much volume as if we had a bigger machine. But then we get a little bit more flexibility out of it.
I love that. Such an interesting consideration. And yeah, having more people able to roast on the same machines and to be able to jump between them makes sense. How similar do you find the 2 machines? Because in my experience, no 2 machines are exactly alike. Um, are they pretty
No, they're
close?
not really. No,
Okay. Okay.
they function the same. So let's say the menu is the same, um, but I mean, as I'm sure as you would know, if even if the pipes
Oh,
have
it's an extra
they're a
meter or
exactly, or a bend in a different part of the pipe, then
yeah.
there's, you have different pressure in the drum, so then they don't behave exactly the same. So we still have to have different profiles on both machines, but at least operating them is the same.
Yeah.
So it's not so hard for the people operating the machines.
That's really interesting. I think probably my last question around the IMF, because now it sounds like I'm grilling you on your roasting machines, but I'm very curious around the recipe developments. It's one of the things I think I heard Scott speak about is how fantastic they are for obviously roasting on inlet temperature, which is fantastic. And then you're able to roast on inlet temperature and then build these recipes. I think it's a 12-step recipe per coffee and per
Yeah,
profile. How accurately do you find the machine follows them? Do you ever use that, or do you roast completely manually as a team?
no, we don't roast manually at all, um, because then it also makes it much more consistent. Let's say from one operator to the other, we always have to only rely on the machine. The recipes are quite good, but let's say the knowledge kind of shifts from, um, let's say when you're roasting manually, there's a little bit of feel for how the profile is going, and how to adjust your changes from day to day. And that knowledge kind of changes to understanding how the PIDs are programmed in the machine,
Yep.
and how they read temperature, and then make changes based on the readings. And we spent a lot of time actually inside the software of the machine to kind of program the PIDs so that they would respond to changes in temperature in the way that works with our profiles the best, which is just a completely different approach, a little bit more technical, I think, and
Yeah.
more focused on really the components of the machine. But once it's done, then it's much easier to roast, to replicate your profiles day in and day out.
I'm
But
really interested in that. I've tasted, so I've had the chance to drink your coffee fairly frequently. Every time I'm just a fan of what you guys do, and I enjoy our conversations always. So whenever I get a chance to drink Dak, I always do. And I the only time I've ever had coffee from you guys that I haven't enjoyed has been because of high intervention coffees, which aren't my preference, but it's
yeah,
never been because of the roast. The roast has always been really, really consistent, really, really good, light, clean, sweet. And I'm kind of shocked to hear that you're achieving that level of consistency through automation. Not because, I mean, it does make sense on the on a higher level that automation should be better than human, interpretation. But in most roasting machines, in reality, that hasn't been the case.
no, that's it's extremely hard to do. The first time that we tried to do it, it took us about 8 months to tweak the machine to get it to work properly.
Jeepers. Okay.
Yeah, and kind of regularly trying to let the machine roast by itself, then try to understand, then make changes, and then yeah, it took us an extremely long time.
Wow.
But now we know how it works. So even if the machine is a little bit different, we understand the changes that we need to make, or how to make the adjustments. And I think the biggest change is I'd say the roasters, or the operators aren't so much focused on, or they're not required to essentially press the buttons on the machine. Their job becomes more understanding the coffee specifically, doing the quality control, and then really understanding kind of the sweet spot of how we want this particular coffee to taste. And once we
Exactly.
have a profile set, then they're very good at managing the machine for consistency. So everything that's the between batch protocol changes from between the day. So we also track humidity and air pressure and these things. And over time, we have now a huge database of different environmental situations, if you will, or different contexts, and then we know how to adjust the profiles based on what is happening in the roastery. So now they're very good at kind of understanding the whole process, more than just pressing the buttons on the screen or on the machine.
And that's where automation makes sense to me. If like I always talk about roasting coffee as being a beautiful marriage of art and science. The art is knowing what you want it to taste like, and the science is knowing how to get there. And if you can spend more time focusing on the art and less time focusing on pressing buttons, and rather programming the scientific side of things or the technology side of things to do what you want it to do, and then continue to analyze the artistic side of it and make those changes, that makes complete sense to me. I love that, and I'm a bit envious of the technology, to be honest with you. I might be placing my orders sooner than I thought.
Yeah, there's also a certain not being overly reliant on the technology, or on the sensors. Understanding the limitations of what the machines can measure, and how that translates into the cup, and maybe having different measurements, so that if one is I don't know, it is not calibrated properly, then you can rely on the other two to also know that the problem is not necessarily uh, the the coffee itself, but it's your measurement that's defective, and you have other data points essentially that point you in the right direction. So being overly reliant on only one piece of data or one piece of technology can also have downsides.
Interesting. Yeah, I that makes complete sense. I mean, yeah, it sounds like you guys have it so beautifully worked out. And I just love the fact that, you've got 5 people roasting coffee and the consistency is there. And I think that's a hard thing to do. When I started in coffee, I remember hearing I don't know if it was a podcast or if I read an article about how impressive it is that over the years, Tim Wendelboe's coffee has always tasted like Tim Wendelboe's coffee. And they've had so many different people running the machines and roasting the coffee, but it's never been reliant on the expertise of just one person. It's always been
Yeah,
a system, and that has to be the best way to scale.
yeah, definitely. And it's extremely hard to do. It's extremely hard to do at scale as well.
Yeah,
I think in, let's say, in my opinion, it's probably the hardest thing to do is that to reach a certain scale, to do it over and over again, and to maintain the same standards of quality when you're roasting, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of kilos or thousands of kilos, and also when more people are involved, to have everyone calibrated so that everyone knows what the desired outcome, the desired cup should be, and we're able to kind of consistently replicate that's very, very hard to do. There's
yeah.
so many places where it could go wrong. So
No,
many places.
exactly. It is a miracle when a coffee tastes good, in my opinion. From farm level through to roasting and brewing, like there's so many opportunities for things to go wrong. It truly is a miracle. And I take my hat off to you guys. You're doing an incredible job. How many, out of curiosity, how many days a week are you guys roasting? Is it every day?
Yes, now like weekend production as well.
Okay. Wow.
So generally the two machines will run in parallel about 4 days a week,
Okay.
and then we'll have one machine for the other 3 days.
Okay.
So there's one machine 7 days a week, and then the other one about 4 days.
And do you have a batch limit per day? I think this is a big topic of conversation in roasting at the moment is how many batches a day can a roaster do before they start losing concentration and
Um, yes and no.
do you roast as
Yes
much
and
as you
no.
need to roast?
Exactly.
Yeah, I can relate.
Um, Maybe the roasters would think that we should have a cap, but sometimes in the really busy periods, we try to push it a little bit more. And I think time is probably the biggest constraint more than the number of batches. If we have someone coming in at 8, starting the machine, and then running all the way until 6, then it's a
It's a
lot of
full day
batches.
of roasting. Wow.
Yeah,
And on the IMF, I mean, your roast times are pretty quick, I believe, around 6 or 7 minutes normally for a full batch. I don't know if that's accurate for
exactly.
you guys, but I know that's how Scott's roasting.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah,
Yeah.
depending on the coffee, but
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, really, really interesting. So, I guess the next question is, you've got the roasting team. What is your main role in the roastery now? What do you focus on? What are you excited about?
um, so I think that now I'm in a place where I can, not finally, but the business is at size where now I can focus on the parts of the business that fit better with my skill set. And same with Veronique. So it took us 6 years, 6, 7 years to get to that point. But so now Veronique takes care of everything that's marketing, branding, and the product.
Okay, and she's doing an
Uh,
amazing job.
yeah, she's doing a really, really good job. But you can see that also there's an expertise there that's from much earlier than just learning on the go from starting a business. And then I do everything that's, let's say, back office. So everything in operations, technology, and financial administration.
Okay. Interesting. And from a sales perspective, do you have a team handling that, or is it mostly, through the marketing efforts, people coming to you?
We have a team of 3, one sales manager, let's say, who handles all of the key accounts, then a junior account manager, and someone working more in customer service.
Okay.
But our model now is mostly inbound,
Yes.
so we don't do a lot of active outreach or active prospecting. So a lot of it is based on, because we're lucky enough to have very good customers around the world. So people get to try the coffees in a lot of different places. And then every now and then you'll have someone who's very interested for their own cafe. So they have some sort of a need for an office, and then they would contact us
Exactly.
directly. So that's how we manage things. And we obviously, because of Veronique's background, we like to do a lot of collaborations and events and these types of things, and that generally generates a lot of interest as well.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense to me. I think in the specialty coffee space, if you are there are roasteries out there for sure who have a very I don't know what the right word is. I don't enjoy sales at all. So like a bit of a pushy approach,
Yeah.
which switches me off immediately. And we've never really done that as a roastery. We've always relied on brand communication and storytelling to, hopefully entice people into a conversation around what it might look like to work together. And it sounds like you guys are doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And
A
that
bit
appeals
different.
to
I think
me.
you guys do a fantastic job also with, the podcast you're doing now, all of these videos, and a lot of it around content, which I think is done very, very well, and super interesting. And I admire that a lot, because I'm not so comfortable in front of a camera, or behind a microphone. So I think you guys do it very well.
Oh man, I really appreciate that. I love photography. It's one of my core hobbies. So when I started Bluebird, I remember, I'm sure you guys will relate to this, but I remember having a conversation with a customer in the early days, and he said to me, who fills the bags and who roasts the coffee and who does the content creation? And I said to him, listen, any type of content, whether it's media or coffee or anything else, is done by me. So in the beginning, you're doing kind of everything. But now I'm so fortunate to have Katie, who obviously you've met, who's my partner, and also the creative. I think like creative strategist would probably be the best description for her job at the moment. And she's doing an amazing job. I really do. I think she's killing it. So, we're so isolated. We're not in the center of Europe. We're not in the US. We're on the southern tip of Africa, and so far removed from every market we have interested in working in outside of our home market. And for me, growing Bluebird we were never going to be the local roastery around the corner. I always had ambitions to be more of a significant player in the industry than that. And we had to learn how to tell the story properly. So I think that's been a driving force behind our media efforts. But thank you. I really appreciate that. She puts in so much amazing work, and it's cool to see the whole team getting involved now. We've got a video went out recently with our operations manager, Rachel, and she just, is such a breath of fresh air amongst this like male dominated team that we've had in front of the camera for such a long time. It's so nice to have some fresh faces. So yeah, it is a big focus for us. But I think
Yeah, and it's
sorry,
it's
carry on.
working as well. It's working as well because I can't imagine how much harder it would be, to do it out of South Africa. Like you mentioned, just being so far from all of the markets is just an additional um, hurdle that is hard to overcome.
We sit in this really interesting space. Just to take a moment to speak about our, sort of, I guess one or two of the challenges that we face as a roastery. We sit in this interesting space where you guys spend a lot of time in South Africa, which I think is wonderful. And it is such a beautiful country, and I have no intention of ever leaving. From a business point of view and a coffee point of view, we ride this weird line where locally, the vast majority, if not all, of our wholesale customers want more developed coffee. And it's a constant discussion that, they really want to work with us. They really want to be a part of the Bluebird family, but they just cannot brew our coffees in such a way that their customers are relating to them. They're so used to what's happening in all the big chain, coffee stores, that if we want to grow the B2B business in South Africa, we've had to adopt and create some products for the local market. And those products are not even products that I particularly would reach for on a day-to-day basis to drink. But it's been a case of one product for South Africa, and then obviously we have our local home user market, which is this enthusiastic, incredible base of customers who just want to taste light, bright, fruity, floral coffees, and we do our best to cater for them, and that very much aligns with what we are selling internationally. But on one hand, I'm dealing with, Marcus and these amazing cafe owners in Europe and in the US and in Asia who want light, bright, fruity. We're like pushing the boundaries of how light can we go while still being fully developed. And then in South Africa, anything lighter than, like a proper full medium in my mind is almost impossible to work with on an espresso bar. So we have this like real struggle day to day, because I would love to just go, right, no more blends, we light roasting everything. But I think we'd go back to my home office and we'd be operating from there again,
Yeah.
So it is really difficult. But that's why we're so obsessed with growing our reach internationally as well. It's an area of focus for us.
And does it mean that then I imagine you buy different green for these blends than you do for your lighter coffees that you would sell internationally?
It's
right?
interesting. I mean, yes and no. Our blends are made up of essentially, I try to keep it very, very simple. So I try to keep it down to 2 coffees per blend. I don't think it's necessary to go beyond that in most cases. So we have a large amount of Brazilian coffee that we go through for. I think a lot of people can relate to this. A lot of specialty roasters can relate to this as your daily driver, sort of like wholesale coffee. We use a really good Brazilian coffee. And then we use micro lots to sort of bring the level of the coffee up to something that we're excited about. So whether that's generally a lot of African coffees, so we'll buy specifically from Maraho Coffee in Rwanda, who we get a lot of our really beautiful Rwandan coffees from. We'll blend their coffee, or Mugoti coffee in Burundi. So we certainly aren't buying cheap green for our blends, but we run much lower margins on our blends than what we do on our other coffees, unfortunately, even though it's our higher volume part of the business. But we're in a situation where in South Africa, I'm choosing to be transparent and to buy in a way that I, feel good about, and I see the impacts at origin being very positive. And a lot of our customers, unfortunately, don't see the value in that like we do. So we either do that and run lower margins, or we don't do that and, compromise on our business philosophy and ethics, which I'm not willing to do. So we do buy some different green, but we do also, a lot of the green that we buy for our blends ends up on the single origin, light roast menu as well.
I mean, that's smart, because I imagine otherwise it's effectively like running 2 businesses at the same time, right? You have 2 sourcing programs. You have to keep inventory in 2 places. So it makes it that much harder to have kind of both running at the same time. If you can have an intersection between the 2, then at least there's some benefit for your operation.
Exactly. I think the future for us is probably going to move further away from blends, but rather level of development of certain coffees. So, coffees roasted specifically for espresso and milk for the local market. When I say local market, we do have international customers who, use our blends as their daily coffees. And then they have a selection of the light roast. Because I would say that our micro lot and special release range from a color perspective is very similar at the moment. I've been doing a ton of work on the roasting side over the last 6 months, and from what I've been testing on the color side of things, we're close to you guys and Say. We're a little bit lighter than Tim Wendelboe and Coffee Collective,
Yeah.
but very very close in color to what you guys are doing and what Say are doing, and that's where my preference lies. But those coffees aren't really what our local wholesale customers are able to serve. So you're right, it is almost two businesses in one, but there is a bit of overlap, which does help us a lot.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that's one thing that is not understood enough by the consumers or by the customers is the operations side of thing and the supply chain implication and inventory management and your sourcing schedule and how having a wide variety of different coffees, if you want to offer different prices, and in this case, let's say blends versus single origin, how that um, makes the whole um, behind the scenes of your business really, really complicated, much more complicated than if you're focusing on just one thing. And
Absolutely.
a lot of people want those eh, very expensive and bright coffees for 1 kilo at a time, and to offer it just for their customers. Then they'll have very special releases for be the retail, but then they want to have a very stable um, and affordable coffee for their grinders. But it's super difficult to to continuously have both at the same time, and to have a sourcing program that allows you to have variety in both ranges essentially. And that's yeah, it's a little bit
Absolutely.
misunderstood, I think, from
No, I completely agree with that. And I think, you know, sometimes I look at what we're doing and I'm like, wow, we really are choosing to do this the hard way because, you know, we don't really have any local green importers bringing in anything good. So everything we're having to bring in is either direct or through importers in Europe. So the logistical side of it is really difficult. It's not like we have a warehouse down the road with 10 different lots from Kenya in it. The 10 different lots from Kenya are all sitting in our warehouse already paid for and taking up space.
wow, yeah, okay.
So that makes it really challenging as well. So I think we are, I don't know, maybe I enjoy the difficulty, but we we have made it quite hard for ourselves by doing this, or trying to be a well-known light roast, roastery, specialty roastery out of South Africa, but doing work in different parts of the world. It's challenging, but it's fantastic. I enjoy solving these puzzles.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, and this is I've given you like little way out here as well. um, in terms of your time in business, what is the biggest mistake you were prepared to share with our audience? It might not be the biggest mistake you've ever made, but is there something that stands out for you that if you were able to go back in time and do that one thing over, you would do it differently?
um
I'm putting you on the spot here. I didn't give you any time to prepare for this massive question.
I think um probably the it's not the biggest mistake, but it's a one mistake and we made it a few times before we realized that it was super important to stand our ground. When when the company was growing, or a few years ago, we got we got bullied a little bit by some of the employees that wanted kind of fast trajectories and fast promotions. And not bullied in a really negative sense, but pressured, I guess, is a better word for it. And then we promoted certain people in certain positions where they weren't necessarily ready to take on the additional responsibilities. And in hindsight, now we knew that they weren't ready, but we didn't stand our ground essentially. And then we were stuck with a few months of an underperforming person that was someone that we really liked, but I was just in the wrong position, because we couldn't remain honest and say, look, you'll need a few more months of slowly taking on more responsibility. And I think that's a mistake that we made a few times before we understood that we will just now say, no, you're not ready yet. And instead of, more easily saying yes, we'll build out a development program um, for these key employees, so that they can see at least a path forward. It fills their need for advancement and for ambition, while at the same time then making sure that once they do take on a little bit more responsibility and bigger roles, that they are ready for it, and they know what to expect. But yeah, I think for me personally, the HR side of running a business is definitely the hardest.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great answer. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine years ago who works in the education space. They've got a really interesting tech business in the education space, and he was talking about zero point 0.5 employees. So they're people put in positions that they're not ready for, and they can't actually do the role properly. So somebody has to come in and constantly help them. So instead of having
Hmm.
two whole employees, you end up with one really good employee and somebody who's half needing constant help, and it just it slows everything down. Um, so that's a great answer, and yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, will relate to that. And then I guess the
Yeah.
next question is the best decision you think you've ever made. Something that has been like more beneficial to the business than what you thought it would be when you made the decision.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Because I'm sure there's so many little fine line moments and decisions which have had
Yeah.
such a big impact.
I mean, I'm sure you probably get this question a lot as well, right? People often want one single reason or one single answer, why things are going well, or why you're able to grow.
Yeah, because
The
for our
rea
listeners who aren't aware, I mean, your business is young, 6 or 7 years old,
Yeah.
and you're operating in a market where there must be hundreds of specialty roasteries, and having seemingly come out of nowhere, obviously with decades of experience in other parts of the business which are very valuable to you now, but seemingly having come out of nowhere, you've surpassed the vast majority of your competition in terms of brand reputation, quality, consistency, and you're just continuing to grow, which is just so impressive. So there have to be some big moments there where you didn't know if it was the right decision or not, but it's turned out to be something brilliant. But it's never one silver
No,
bullet.
exactly. And a lot of people want, let's say, a magic formula, or a recipe essentially for replicating this type of growth. A lot of it is based on our context and our situation, and it's very hard to replicate, for example, in South Africa or in the US. But I think the best decision is not so much a single decision, but it's a little bit of a mindset shift that we had a few years ago, and that's about being very, very focused in one particular niche, and then going extremely deep in that niche and not deviating from this path, even if sometimes we get maybe opportunities or things that could be interesting, but that are a little bit outside of our focus. And we've learned to say no. And now this means that it's something that we still do today. We will say no to a lot of inbound requests when it doesn't fit with um, kind of the ideal client description that we have. We will say no to certain green coffees that we think are good but don't fit within this niche that we have, and I think that's been the best decision, or the best, let's say, mindset that we've had over the last few years, because then it allows us to be extremely focused, and extremely efficient in how we do things. Essentially, we're not wasting resources on projects that may not work, on coffees that we won't be carrying for a long time. So it means that we're more efficient with our time, we're more efficient with our resources, we're more efficient with our inventory, and all of these things. There's a lot of things that come out from just being extremely focused in um, where we want to go.
That's fantastic. I think I actually spoke at a conference a little while back where I was talking about going narrower, and how I'm just seeing in the coffee industry. I think it's being such a young industry, we're trying to find our way. And I think there are a lot
Mm,
of business owners being kind of pushed around by suppliers, number one, and customers, number two. And they're trying to be everything to everybody. You know, it might sound like I'm being hypocritical here, because we have a range of coffees that we are developing a bit more specifically for our local market, and we're doing very light, fruity, interesting coffees from world leading producers. But I think there's such a sense of identity needed to have longevity and to really build something of substance. And knowing when to say no is far more important than knowing when to say yes,
yeah,
in my
definitely,
opinion.
definitely.
So I can relate. That's amazing. Yeah. I think what you guys are doing is just incredible, and I really wish we could spend more time in person. I thought we were going to get to hang out a bit in London, but it was such a busy event for both
Yeah.
of us at Bloomtown. We were inundated from start to finish. And then obviously you guys were celebrating your anniversary, so we wanted to get out of your way.
Maybe at another World of Coffee
Yeah, we
soon,
have
or
to. We have
yeah,
to. We have to. And I think maybe that brings me to my last question for you. And then I've got, okay, it's the second to last question. I've got one to wrap up with. But you guys seem to be doing events constantly. And you said these activations and collaborative pop ups with cafes and so on have been so important to you. But you also seem to really give a lot of importance to the festivals and showcasing your coffee all over the world, whether it's in Asia, the US, Europe. Um, my question is, has that been pivotal for your brand growth, would you say, and a worthy investment? And secondly, how do you do that with such a small team, being seemingly everywhere all of the time?
um, we it's very, very hard to do. So there's a lot of planning that goes behind all of these events, because we some of the people that are is the best people for these festivals might in some cases also be the roasters, and then we can't take them away from production for too long. Um, eh, we can't take people away from the showroom, because then you can't schedule kind of staff for the regular operations of the showroom. So it's a little bit of a puzzle in finding who we can send to which festivals. Um, I think it's been very good in certain cases, not all of them. Uh, for, let's say, for exploring a new market, I think then it's very good, because we'll wait until we have maybe a few customers in that market, and then we will go, so that we can have someone to meet there that we already know.
Interesting.
And then while we're there, we can also try to essentially expand our presence in the market. So we try to do both at the same time, so that we're not just um, spending money to go to a fair, and coming back, and then we're not really sure if it's worth it or not. So we'll usually try
Exactly.
to combine a sales trip with a festival and then a few events, so that at least we're maximizing kind of our time on those trips. The I think the best thing that we've probably done to make it easier to schedule is we've simplified uh, our brewing approach, and kind of our presence at these festivals, so that we can send people from the team that are not necessarily from coffee backgrounds, and the brewing is simple enough and consistent enough with, let's say, like super easy brewers and very easy recipes that they can also help during the festival, and then that gives us more flexibility in sending a lot more people from our team than just the really skilled baristas.
Yeah, that makes
So then,
sense.
so we're able to build essentially a team that maybe there's one person that has done it many times, that knows how to dial in the coffees very well. There's one person that's very good at kind of organizing everything, and then we can send one more person that um, will be able to help because everything's so easy to manage, and it will give us the flexibility to not take another person away from key departments that
Yeah.
will affect the operations.
And they might not even have to be a full-time staff member in that case, you know.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is it normally a three-person team? We found that that's kind of the minimum at most of these events.
Yeah, and then if it's four, then it becomes very expensive,
No,
particularly
it's
when they're
so
quite
expensive.
far.
Exactly.
So it's a balance of having the right size team and at these events so that it works well. Also, you could do it with two people, but then they they might resign when they come
No,
back from the shows.
exactly. I mean, Katie and I would have if we could have, but we can't. So,
Yeah.
yeah, two is full on at these festivals, and at the events, your setup is very consistent in look and feel. Do you travel with all of those bits and pieces for the shelving and everything, or do you normally find stuff locally that you can use?
No, so we commissioned a custom build out that fits in a suitcase,
Wow,
and that's essentially modular, that we can build out in a lot of different configurations depending on which show we're at. But then it means that it's always the same for people traveling. It fits in a suitcase, so we can just put it in a suitcase, carry it with us, and then it's very easy to move around. And it also means that wherever we go, we always have. Um, we're not dependent on the organizers to provide us with um, the equipment or the structure that we need.
yeah,
It was quite a nice addition, because we used to do it based on the tables that they have are not always the best. Sometimes you have to pay for all of the little extras that you want, and it gets expensive pretty quickly. So instead, we
exactly.
decided to make our own.
That's really interesting. And being so far removed from all of these events, we're always trying to decide where to go and what's going to be
Mhm.
worth it. And just, we don't have, we have a specialty coffee expo in Johannesburg, which is always fantastic for us. It's really busy. There used to be one in Cape Town, but it doesn't look like it's happening this year, and it didn't happen last year. So everything else that we do is international, and it's so expensive, especially traveling on the Rand, and it's just not easy. So we're constantly trying to figure out which events to do, and do we take stands at the events, or do we just try and connect with cafes around the events? I mean, I don't know if you mind sharing some of your insights on this, but like, specifically for Europe and Asia, if there's certain events that you have found to be like the ones that you won't miss.
Um, I would say, let's say in Europe, I think the one that's a can't miss is Madrid.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, you see,
it's
that's a difficult one
huge.
for us because Spain seems to be the only country in the EU who have an import policy against non-perishable food items. And it's the only country in the EU where we've had coffee turned around and sent back to us. So
Yes, I've heard that before.
I'm not
That's
convinced
that's
that there's
right.
no way around it, but at the moment we've got a bit of we've had so many requests from cafes in Spain, and we've had to say no to them because we're too scared of sending them coffee and having it turned around. But that's an
Yeah,
interesting one. If we can solve that problem, you would say Madrid is the one, hey?
definitely, because it's quite big. It's surprisingly big.
Okay.
It's a fast growing market. The specialty coffee in Spain now is everywhere, also in countryside and smaller towns. It's becoming quite mainstream, um, and the crowd is just very knowledgeable, very fun to be around. They're very open-minded also about a lot of um, new roasters and different styles of coffee and different types of coffee. So we always have a lot of fun,
Oh,
a lot of
that's
fun there.
amazing. And how
And
do you
then the
find
other
World of
one,
Coffee?
uh, usually if it's the one in Europe, we attend, but we don't have a booth.
Yeah. I've
Um,
heard that from a lot of people.
it seems like it's a little bit more industry focused.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's the same for you guys as it is for us, I'm sure, where we have so many equipment partners who have brewing stations at their booths. We can brew our coffee at so many different places at these events.
Yeah, yeah, and you can get the benefit of essentially being able to showcase your coffees to
Mm,
people that you meet there or that you have a conversation with before the show starts. Then if you do these takeovers, then it's fairly easy. But having a booth, at least in my opinion, requires um, being able to sell a good amount of retail or drinks, however
mm.
you want to do it, to at least recover a portion of the investment.
I mean, you have to. It's so expensive to constantly, be at these events. But I cut you off there. You were saying Madrid, and there was another one that comes to mind.
Yes, and the other one, which I think for us is probably the best, is Taiwan.
Taiwan, really?
Yeah, if you can find a way to import the coffee because it's extremely difficult,
Oh, really?
then there because importing is so difficult into Taiwan, they're quite knowledgeable there as well. Um, then it's a fantastic event.
And did you have a bunch of customers in Taiwan first before you went, or did you just go?
Just one.
Okay, I'm trying to think now. I
Um,
think we
but
do have one or two in Taiwan actually, but very inconsistent. Buying from us once every now and then.
mhm. Because I think their maximum, if I'm not mistaken, I think at least from an import perspective is 10 kilos.
Oh wow.
Any anything above 10 kilos has to go through quarantine
Oh my goodness.
and an inspection, which is usually about 3 weeks to a month. So most of the cafes that would potentially order larger volumes just simply don't do it because it doesn't make any sense.
Okay. But the festival itself is so well supported that you should almost go without even having customers there.
Exactly, because the local cafes can't import coffees from outside, and as soon as there's an international roaster at the show, then the consumers there just go crazy.
Oh wow.
They engage a lot. You have very nice discussions. They also are very interested.
Oh, that
So
sounds amazing.
it's a good energy, and Taipei is a fantastic place to be for for a few days as well.
Yeah, Jeepers, I'd love to go. That sounds amazing. I'm also looking at the Tokyo World of Coffee next year. That sounds. I want to get to Tokyo, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, we will be there as well.
Amazing, amazing, and also again, not taking a booth, just doing events around the show.
We haven't decided yet.
Okay, okay,
We'll wait and see how expensive the booth is, and if we start trying to find events to do, if we can find a lot of events and the booth is expensive, then maybe we'll just stick to that. But we'll go for sure.
yeah, that's amazing. And again, do you have customers in Tokyo already, or are you going to be prospecting new opportunities before going?
We have one.
Okay,
We have
okay,
one.
interesting.
It's a difficult market because they also have a lot of extremely good roasters in
Exactly.
Japan, and they're very focused on like the local market.
Yeah.
So we haven't really tried.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, so geez, so Taiwan, you must have to take so much coffee with you.
Yeah, yeah, a
Wow.
lot. So and then yeah, getting it cleared in time for the show is also a bit of a
So
nightmare.
it has
But
to go through quarantine just for your stand.
yeah, it has to go either through quarantine or it has to be split into a maximum of 10 kilos per parcel,
Okay.
which means if you want to send 400 or 500 retail for the show, then it means you're sending 10 different parcels, sometimes 2 or 3 to a hotel, 2 or 3 to a customer, two or
Yeah.
three to other people. And then you have to kind of, yeah, it's quite hard, but it's worth it in the end.
Okay, jeepers. Well, I'm definitely going to be looking into that one for us. Yeah, just completely off the record from my perspective, we are so desperate to grow our reach into Europe. We've got some amazing customers already, like Sweet Spot as the leading example there. Marcus is just such a great guy, and I love working with him so much, and he's been so consistent with us, which has been such a blessing. But we keep adding customers, but not at the rate that I would like to, and I think it's a lot of fear around importing from South Africa,
Mm,
which is a huge barrier for us. So we're trying to figure out some solutions there. I'm working on some stuff at the moment around currency based price lists, which we haven't been doing. Everything has just been price lists in rands, which I think scares some people. I think we also need to subsidize our shipping cost into the cost of the coffee a little bit, because our
mhm.
coffee is so cheap, and then when you add the shipping cost to it, it still makes sense. But I think people hate paying for shipping. So I think we're going to look at our pricing structure a little bit and try and figure that out. But yeah, it's been a challenge. I won't lie. And we've spent money traveling to Europe, and we really want to grow in the market. I think our coffee belongs in Europe, and we've just got to find our way. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at the moment.
Yeah.
To share openly with you, it's been a challenge, but the feedback we're getting from our European customers and from individuals who buy our coffees from European customers has been so overwhelmingly positive, to such an extent that when people from Europe come to South Africa, they often they go to Cape Town to do the wine thing, and then they'll literally fly to Durban so that they can come up to Howick and spend some time at the roastery, and that's their itinerary for their trip,
Yeah.
which is kind of
Well,
crazy.
that's crazy. Yeah, that's fantastic as well.
I wanted to ask, what is next for Dak? What are you excited about for the future? Where do you see you guys in the next few years?
Um, it's a hard one. I think now we're kind of focused on continuing to grow our operations, on maintaining a high quality product, and then at a larger scale. And so at least the focus from now and over the next 2 years, let's say, is efficiency of operations. We need to move to a new roastery in the near future, so that will take a lot of time, a lot of renovation, and a lot of yeah, a lot of my time.
I'm sure,
Um,
and not a
and
small
then
task to move an entire roastery.
no, exactly. So I think that will be the focus at least for the next 2 years. And then after that, it'll be just continuing to support and grow our wholesale customer base, and kind of continuing to expand our sourcing program as well. There's a lot of origins that we source very little from because we never had the resources to do kind of proper research and travel to origin and find the producers that we want to work with. So that's something that we want to do a little bit more of in the next few years, is kind of work with more origin and find good producer partners in those origins.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm really excited to see what you guys put out, and we remain big fans as a roastery. But myself personally, I'm a big fan of your work, and We'll hopefully see you at events around the world in the next 12 months. We can catch up in person for a beer somewhere and have a proper chat. But
Yeah, that would be great.
yeah, or on your next trip to South Africa, let's try and meet up,
Yeah, always, always.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I really want to thank you for your time. It's been a fantastic chat, and thank you for being so open. I think a lot of people are interested around, what you've done to have this meteoric rise in the coffee industry, in the specialty coffee industry, and you've been very open and great to chat with. So I really appreciate your time, man.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, I hope we get to see each other very soon.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Don't work too hard, and we'll chat soon.
All right, speak soon.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Coffee Made Me Do It podcast. I had a great time chatting to Louis. I could talk to him all day about coffee, and man, I wish I could pick his brain a lot more around the beautiful success that Dak is having and experiencing and enjoying. If you haven't tried their coffee before, I would highly recommend jumping on their website and grabbing some. If you haven't tried our coffee before, I would recommend you do the same thing. And I hope we'll see you in the next episode of the Coffee Made Me Do It podcast. We always enjoy sharing these stories with you, and I appreciate you listening. Ciao.